Anamorphic lenses. You've probably heard this term once or twice, especially when working with cameras. But what does it actually mean when we say we're filming with anamorphic lenses? Are anamorphics dying because of the new age of Netflix-produced films on your home TV screens? What feeling does anamorphic actually have on an audience? So in this video, we're going to be breaking down and reviewing GREATJOY's anamorphic lens kit compared with the new Blackmagic's anamorphic filming format. This is GREATJOY's anamorphic lens kit, and it comes with a 35mm, 50mm and 85mm, and in my opinion I think this is the perfect variety of lenses. 35 for those wider shots, 50 for those mid shots and 85 for those close-ups. We'll talk a little bit more about the technical aspects of filming anamorphic, but essentially what they do is film in this squeezed format like this, and then in the edit you de-squeeze the image like this for a more, dare I say it, cinematic look. And because it's squeezed down, when you stretch it out, it gives you this long landscape look, causing the top and bottom to be cropped out. These lenses are used a lot for cinema, because when you're in a cinema, you don't actually see those black bars and you don't actually see the missing frame. All you see is this long, nice landscape image. So these lenses are optimized for cinema and those bigger screens. But then when you move that film into the home and on a home screen, those black bars are more noticeable. So next time you're watching a film and you see those black bars on the top and the bottom and it has that longer stretched out image, you know that they are most likely filming on anamorphic lenses. These lenses specifically are a 1.8 squeeze, creating this very stretched out image like this. And as you can see, you lose a lot of that space on the top and the bottom, even more so than I mentioned earlier. However, if you film in Blackmagic's new 6x5 anamorphic mode, you can see that you no longer lose too much of the image on the top and the bottom, creating that more realistic cinema look, because this filming format is specific for anamorphic lenses. Now this part of the video is going to be very camera technical. We're going to go through filming formats, aspect ratios, so if you do want to skip this section, feel free to do so using the chapters in the description. I think this section is important because there are so many things I wish I knew before I bought these lenses. There's all these little technical mishaps that you can have when shooting anamorphic, and I wanted to go through them with you so you don't make the same mistakes I did. Everything I'm going to be talking about today is specific to the Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K because of that new anamorphic filming format that I want to talk about. I'm going to start with the display for this camera when shooting with these lenses. First of all, the image looks like this. This is not squeezed, this is how it records. However, what I mentioned earlier with the 1.8 squeeze, in post-production when you de-squeeze it, it looks like this. However, to get a display that showcases that 1.8 squeeze, you need a monitor that displays specifically a 1.8 squeeze. So the monitor that I use is the Atmos Ninja, because you can see here it has that 1.8 D-squeeze. Another common monitor that people have is the Atmos Shinobi, which does not have a 1.8 D-squeeze. And you need a monitor to show you what you are actually recording, because you can't film it in that format without de-squeezing it on location whilst you're filming, because you can't see the focus, you can't see the framing. So having a monitor that de-squeezes an image, specifically 1.8 for these lenses, is an absolute must. Which is why I invested in the Atmos Ninja, because it's sharp and it showcases that 1.8 D-squeeze perfectly. There are different squeeze factors for different anamorphics. You have the Suri Saturns that are 1.6 times squeeze. These are 1.8, you can get 2 times squeeze. So there are different variations on the squeeze. In the Blackmagics, you can actually change the squeeze factor and it will record that squeeze factor in camera, so you don't have to do it in the edit. However, this is a 1.8 squeeze, which I keep saying, but this Blackmagic does not have a 1.8 D-squeeze option when you're filming 6x5, which is the optimized high quality anamorphic mode. This is a decision that I am not 100% sure why it is made. It must be some sort of technical issue, but they have every single one but 1.8, which is a big downfall, especially when these lenses are a 1.8 squeeze. I hope that you guys are still following along and all of this makes sense. Like I said, this is a very technical part of the video. However, it is needed before you get these lenses. There are steps to this process using anamorphics. It's not like a spherical lens where you can just clip it on and it's done. There is a process to using anamorphics. Okay, so we're going to move on to Blackmagic's filming formats for anamorphic lenses. There are 3 filming formats to keep in mind. You have 6x5, Super 35, which is 4x3, and 6K DCI. 6x5 anamorphic mode is the filming format that I shoot on using this camera because it utilizes the sensor vertically and horizontally. With this filming format, you have to sacrifice frame rates. It's maxed out at 36 frames per second, which in my opinion is not good enough. Maxing out at 36 frames per second on this mode is a huge limitation and is a big sacrifice to ask. And when shooting in this format and applying that 1.8D squeeze on the Atmos Ninja monitor like I discussed earlier, you can see that the image looks like this. I don't know why, you can't zoom in, but this is what it looks like. And as you can see, if you're on location, this display is too small. It's almost half the display. This can be extremely frustrating at times because it's very hard to see the image and to see if I'm in focus. There is a counter to this, which is this thing here. So this is the monitor here, and to counter that, all you need is a viewfinder, which you clip on like that, which allows you to look into the monitor and it enlarges the image. You can almost see the enlarged image here, and because of this, I can see this image perfectly well. The other filming format is 4x3. Now this filming format does actually have a 1.8D squeeze on the Blackmagic. So if you don't want to faff about with all of that editing and that squeezing, then you can film in this format and use that 1.8D squeeze actually in camera. The max frame rate is 50 frames, which is a massive improvement on the 36 frames per second on the other 6x5 filming format. 4x3 is a great filming format if it's for a lower budget production or if you need to deliver the footage to an editor and they are unfamiliar with anamorphic footage and how to de-squeeze it. Filming it in 1.8D squeeze and filming in that format is a great option. And again, like I said, you have those 50 frames per second, which sometimes on a production is needed for those slow motion shots. I personally prefer filming on 6x5 because that way I know that I'm getting the max amount of pixels and the max amount of quality when using these lenses. Finally, you have the 6K DCI filming format. This filming format is not specifically for anamorphic mode. However, it allows you to capture an image like this, the full 1.8D squeeze stretch. And I think it's important to note this filming format because if you want that really elongated image, you still can do that with this camera by filming 6K DCI. If you're filming on this camera, it doesn't really make sense to not film in the anamorphic modes, especially with anamorphic lenses, because you are really utilizing the pixels on the horizontal side of the sensor and the vertical side of the sensor. Here is the case. This is what comes with the kit. And if we open this up here, so this is what you get in the lens kit, is this here. This is the entire lens kit. Like I said earlier, it comes with 35, 50 and 85mm lenses. The next point I'm going to make can either be a pro or a con for you, but these lenses are not really sharp. When you focus on something, it is still in focus and it is still sharp to a certain extent, but they're nothing compared to the Sigma lenses and those corporate lenses that are very super commercially sharp. Flares are a huge part of anamorphics and cinema in general. Some people love flares, some people hate flares, but in my opinion, these lenses have that right amount of flare. I've heard people complain about these lenses about not having enough flare and that they've had to really force some flares out by pointing a light directly into the lens. However, I disagree. I like the amount of flare that is projected in these lenses. It's not too much and it's not too little, because I think when you overdo flares, it can be extremely distracting. And you can even choose if you want amber flares or blue flares, which I think is really unique and something that with spherical lenses I've never had the option for. Another big selling point for anamorphic lenses is the bokeh that it produces. Bokeh is that soft, out of focus light you can see in the background of your image. Next time you're watching a big budget film and you notice these oval looking circles behind a subject, you know that that film is being shot on anamorphic lenses. The build quality of these lenses is fantastic. They are extremely sturdy and heavy, which we'll get to in a minute, but in terms of build quality and the way that the focus ring nicely smooths around the lens, it is very, very nice build quality, which is extremely important when you're investing your money into a lens kit. Something that I noticed straight away with these lenses is the weight, especially this 85mm. These things are extremely heavy. Considering how light my Sigma 18-35 is, these lenses are heavy. And that's because it is cinema glass. It's thick cinema glass, and like I said, the build quality is fantastic. However, if you want to put these on a gimbal matched with the Blackmagic, you're going to need an easy rig and a gimbal that is powerful enough to hold this front heavy lens on your camera. All these lenses have a t-stop of 2.9, which is a good aperture to have. The background isn't too shallow, and I think with narrative pieces you can go too shallow, and I don't like the look of images when they are too shallow. So it is a good aperture. However, I would like the options and the possibilities to go below 2.9, and not necessarily to have a shallower background, but instead to just let more light in. These things are extremely hard to light for. You need to bring a lot of lighting equipment that is bright enough to fill that T2.9. And I'm listing that as a con because once again, it is a limitation. And anything that is a limitation when it comes to filming should be considered as a con. I only encountered one issue when it came to mounting, but I feel like it's an issue that's important to talk about so that if you are looking to invest in these lenses, you don't get caught out like I did. To adapt these lenses from EF to Blackmagic's L mount, I bought this Sigma adapter here. And it works perfectly fine with the 35mm and the 50mm, but with the 85mm, it kept getting caught on this little edge bit here. This was extremely frustrating, as you can tell, because I bought this adapter, EF to L mount, and it just didn't work for the 85mm. So what I did instead, I got this much cheaper EF to L mount adapter from Amazon. However, it doesn't have that aperture control, but of course these are manual cinema lenses, so there's no need for that digital aperture control. The original mounting for these lenses is PL mounts. However, I opted in for the EF mount adapters. This is so that it's easy to adapt these EF lenses to an L mount as well as the EF mount. I think having EF mount gives a more versatile mounting options, going both on L mount and EF mount, so that I didn't have to keep switching mounts, PL to L mounts, then PL to EF, and then EF to L. It was just too much. So in my opinion, just get the EF mounts. You will have more options when filming with these lenses. The last con is the biggest con by far, and that is how long the end bits are of these lenses. Now, because of this, I can imagine these lenses aren't suitable for most cameras, because it almost seems like it's very, very close to touching the sensor, which really puts me on edge. However, because of those mounting options and those lens adapters that we mentioned earlier, it's not that much of an issue when it comes to this camera, but for other cameras, keep that in mind that the long bit of the lenses is very, very long compared to spherical lenses. GREATJOY's anamorphic lenses are one of the most affordable anamorphic lens kits that are out there on the market today. However, they are made with a very specific purpose in mind, which is organised productions with established shot lists, storyboards, where every focal length is picked and decided on in a very specific and detailed way. They're simply not run and gun lenses. You need to light the scene properly, you need to set up the shot properly. These lenses take time to shoot on. And like I discussed earlier in the more technical aspects, it's a lot of effort and a lot of hoops you have to jump through just to shoot on these lenses. With the de-squeeze factor, the monitoring, edit process, there's a lot to them, which is why they're lenses for a specific purpose. All of these factors aren't necessarily a bad thing because it's what these lenses are made for, it's what these lenses are best at. You can get some really, really stunning images and that cinematic, dare I say it, cinematic look They are cinema lenses and they need to be treated as such. Now, can I recommend these lenses for the Blackmagic? I honestly can't say that I do. Simply because of that 1.8 D-squeeze, it's just too much of a D-squeeze, and there are so many hurdles you have to jump through. You have to buy a new monitor with a 1.8 D-squeeze specifically, and because of that, the image is then too small, so then you need like either a bigger monitor that's more expensive or that magnifier that I spoke about earlier. And the main reason I can't recommend these lenses is because there's better anamorphic lenses optimized for this camera, like the Suri Saturn anamorphics, which, yes, they are much cheaper. However, they have a 1.6 D-squeeze, which the camera already has that built in. So it de-squeezes the footage, so you can see the footage at that D-squeeze ratio. So if you own a Blackmagic and have that anamorphic mode, I would recommend investing in the Suri Saturns, simply because of that 1.6 D-squeeze and to simplify your shooting style and to simplify that editing process when it comes to shooting anamorphics. And the Suri Saturns have an L mount, which removes the whole mounting issue that you can have with the Blackmagic. To summarize, these are fantastic lenses and I absolutely love them, especially when paired with a cinema camera. However, you need to be willing to jump through those hoops and to get through those hurdles, because shooting anamorphic does come with its issues. And I've heard people say that shooting anamorphic is easy, shooting on these lenses is easy. It's not. It's really, really not. Shooting anamorphic is tricky. You have this annoying squeeze factor, which you can, fix in post or shoot in camera. They are extremely heavy, which means you need a proper gimbal or an easy rig. When you compare these lenses to spherical lenses, which is what nearly all of Netflix big budget films are now being shot on, I don't know if there's a future for anamorphic lenses. I don't know if they will eventually die out, because so many films are being produced for the TV screen, for your home TV. Netflix releases a film every single week by the looks of it, and they're all shot on spherical lenses because they are optimized for the home TV screen, not for cinema screens. As always, these lenses will be linked in the description below, alongside all of my other camera equipment. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.